Welcome to Vigilant News, everybody. For our show today, we're going to be covering a few different stories here. Jury selection begins in the Hunter Biden gun trial. Top judge blocks complaint against Trump judge Aileen Cannon. Trump actually discusses the possibility of going to prison and some interesting comments that he had about all that. And then Trump joins TikTok and gets over 3 million followers. So we'll cover some of that and a whole bunch of other good stuff. What you got for us, Ryan?
We got Emmanuel Macron gathering European coalition to send military trainers to Ukraine. We have anti-Israel protesters running into LGBTQ pride parade in Philadelphia. Plus, we're going to go over a Substack that I published last week called Charitable Devils. It gets into how philanthropy is used by these criminal actors, charities, 501c3s to kind of facilitate the wills of the political establishment. And then also, there's a brief dig on Balenciaga that we'll get into.
Nice. All right. Well, yeah, welcome to the show, everybody. We are Vigilant News. Okay.
Oh, no. I'm just nodding in agreement.
I think my audio just blasted in there out of nowhere. So, yeah, welcome to Vigilant News, everybody. We're at Vigilant News. I'm Justin. This is Ryan. We're the hosts and founders of Vigilant News. Don't forget you can go to vigilant.news. That's vigilant.news to get the show notes for today. We do a book of the month, as I'm sure many of you know, so you can check that out. We've got our sponsor, Ascent Nutrition. There's a special Ascent Nutrition benefit that I want to share with you guys here. We'll get doing the show, but it's pretty significant considering all the stuff that we got going on with, looming bird flus and things like this. So, yeah. And we'll also have an update about this really cool event that we've been planning. I'm really excited to tell you about it and what we've got going on with it. So Ryan, how you doing?
Good. How have you been, man? I haven't seen you in a while.
I know, right?
Oh my God, I've been up in Michigan for a month now. Still going to be here for a few more weeks, and then back to the endless toil that we love so much.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening. I've been busy as hell doing my thing. You've been busy as maybe heaven will say. Busy as heaven doing our thing.
Right.
That sounds better. So how's it going, everybody in the chat? Good to see you. Good to see Allie in the chat. Crystal Clear 17. No doubt we'll see some other friends. We got Cam Cass Hass in the chat as well. So yeah, how's it going, everybody?
How's things been up in or down in Georgia?
Well, it's starting to get pretty steamy down here. For those of you who've ever been to Georgia, Georgia's kind of like a weird state where, especially where we are at in the Atlanta area, where depending on where the wind's blowing, the prevailing winds, it could either be kind of cool and dry, or it can be sweltering like it's Florida or Texas. So it depends on what's going on that day. So,
That's right.
But yeah, good stuff happening there. I know we got some cool videos we wanted to plug here. So I guess we can do that, and then why don't we talk a little bit about at some point the Trump trial just came to mind.
Yeah, we should probably mention that at least, I guess. I know everybody else is covering it, but was there anything that you published in the last week or so?
Oh, sure, yeah. Why don't we'll do some Substack coverage? Let's do that.
You might as well shamelessly plug our work.
I know. Let's get the awesome plugs. No shame. I have, I've had the Substack for a while now, but I haven't had a chance to do much with it. But recently I started sharing some cool stuff. So this is an older one that I'll share. I won't spend too much time on each of these because I know you've got a couple yourself. But if you're curious, well, where can I find this amazing, fantastic content? You could just go to justindeschamps.substack.com, justindeschamps.substack.com, and you can find it right there. It's got that fancy image of me with the red background there. So I wrote this one after, we were I was unceremoniously dispatched from my recent media organization. And it talks about, it's something that I've found fascinating, which is, it's this idea of a narrow path, that God created the universe, and I think when God does things, he does things the same way everywhere, except in a different, unique form. And if you think about it, like, how easy is it to screw up your life? It's pretty darn easy. Or the analogy I like to use is marriage. Like how much is your husband or wife going to tolerate you doing something you shouldn't be doing, like looking at another woman, sending dick pics to another woman, having sex with another man, things like this. And what most people I think would say, if they were being honest, is that you should tolerate none of it. Actually, there's like one single toe out of the narrow path can land you in a heap of trouble. And then that's just a start. And, one of the things I always remind myself of too, and this is a good, if you're one of the types who gets a little resentful of life, is it can always get worse. So if you ever step a toe out of line and all of a sudden your life starts to go down the crapper and you're like, what's going on? Well, things can always get a lot worse. And so it's kind of the same idea, except with respect to society and business. We don't really know what a good business is anymore because that information has been stripped from our culture. But the founding fathers, they definitely knew what a good business was. They knew what a good business leader was. They knew how to be honorable, trustworthy, to serve your fellow man as your brother's keeper. And, in the modern age, we kind of think like, well, if you can get away with it in business and it's legal, then you should do it. But that's not really the case. Most businesses act dishonorably. Most businesses steal the labor of the people that work for them, demand all sorts of things, pay you basically just enough to get by so you can make sure you get to work every day, but barely anything else. And that's even if the company itself is making massive amounts of money. And just because somebody's name's on the dotted line as the owner, that they feel like they're entitled to have the right to steal people's wealth, take advantage of people if they can get away with it, all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of like a discussion about that. So that's that one. Go ahead.
Nice. I got to make sure I'm subscribed.
Yeah, definitely, dude. I was just telling Paul this. We gotta do what the big dog influencers do. They have these influencer groups where when one influencer shares something, they all like go and like it and reshare it to get hack the algorithm. We got to do the same.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so yeah, there's this one, and then this one I just posted last week. I was working on this one for a couple weeks now. This is going to be kind of like a teaser to my book, which is going to be at elections and society, all sorts of really awesome things about what is an honorable society supposed to look like. How does that help us understand what elections are supposed to be? And in this article, I discuss why citizens shouldn't vote. There's 4 key reasons why citizens should not vote, and only U.S. citizens or citizens of the respective nation can vote. And these are things that the founding fathers knew about intimately, so I call it the lost secrets of the founding fathers. And yeah, I really like this one. I think there's a lot of good stuff to be said. Biden talks about, how, hey, we've got, even more Hispanic voters coming over the border. Isn't that great? And it's like, wait a minute, you're referring to illegals as Hispanic voters? That's not good. That's kind of betraying the fact that you intend to cheat, and you have been cheating. And the only reason people don't realize it is because people have just gotten used to cheating as a standard facet of human life. It's like playing a Monopoly game where every turn the banker takes an extra $1,000 out of the bank instead of 200. And, he's just convinced all the players that that's the way it has to be. And they're like, okay, well, sounds good. And that's kind of the way our society has become with respect to elections and all sorts of stuff. So
Maddie in the chat is saying that my audio is coming in super hot.
Oh, really?
I think I turned it down. It's hard to tell with this mic. Does this sound a little better to you guys?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. I mean, I don't really think you're sounding all that hot.
I moved it back, so it might be a little better.
I think you probably sound okay, but let us know, guys, in the chat if things sound a little wonky. Good to see call sign Cujo in the chat. What's up, y'all? Really appreciate the support. Always good to see you guys. So yeah, I just wanted to pick a couple little nuggets out of this one, and then I'll quickly breeze over the last ones. Okay. So there's a lot of analogies that can be drawn to a sports team. So if you know anything about how sports works in almost every type of sports game, you know that only players are allowed to earn points. If you're watching the Red Sox and the New York Yankees play against each other in a various stadium, I can't think of the one up in Boston right now, but yeah, Fenway, that's it. If you're watching them in Fenway, and all of a sudden, a bunch of guys with tie-dye shirts charge the field and start grabbing the ball and start playing as if they're players. What would happen? Nobody would take their vote seriously. Nobody would take their play seriously. Because only legal players, only allowed players, only players on the right team are allowed to try to earn points. And it's exactly the same analogy when it comes to our elections. So first thing to be considered is free will. Consent is hugely important. If you haven't consented to your government, then you're not allowed to vote, and that's the thing that establishes a citizen more than anything else. Now, there's a lot to learn here that we aren't taught in schools, but that's something the founding fathers knew quite a bit. You have to be honest. You have to have fairness, good faith, and goodwill. And that means you can't try to cheat. If you're not really a citizen and you try to vote, then you're not really being honest. You're not really being fair, and you're not acting in goodwill, which means you're actually trying to honor the rights and interests of the people that you're playing the game with or that you're voting with. Meeting of the minds is the big one. Meeting of the minds basically means that you're staying on the same page with everybody. If you know something and you're in a contract or an agreement with another person, then you should tell that other person everything as long as they are a trustworthy party. And then trust and duty and trusteeship. Trusteeship is the big one. It means basically that you're going to be your brother's keeper, that you're going to try to do, when the situation calls for, what the other people in that contract would like you to do. So yeah, that's a bit of those. You can find these in the show notes at vigilant.news. And then just real quick on these other ones that I wrote here, we've got Jesus did to the Pharisees what Trump is doing to the globalists, talking about some of the interesting parallels between Trump and what he's doing to the globalist empire. I mean, there's an illusion right now that the globalists have a true, fair rule of law society, which they don't. They're persecuting an innocent man, Donald Trump. What did the Pharisees do in his day, in Jesus's day? Well, Jesus was simply trying to tell people about his mission and about the truth that he had discovered as a being, the Son of Man. And the established order, the Pharisees, were scheming, conniving, manipulating, and ultimately resigned themselves to kill an innocent man, arguably the most innocent man, Jesus, the Son of God, to maintain their power. And for that, they destroyed their grip to power. And I think that's exactly what the globalists are going to lose as they continue to persecute Trump. And you can read about that in that article there.
Nice. You've been cranking them out, huh?
I have. I got a really good flow going, so I'm hoping I can keep this going. And this last one I just did today, a short history of the encroachment of globalism. I'll probably spend a little more time on this one later, so I just wanted to mention that. You can go to justindeschamps.substack.com, or you can go to vigilant.news, and in the show notes you can find all these articles. So, all right, there we go. That wasn't too bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
nice.
So what you got? Yeah, I know you've been working really hard, too.
Yeah, let me just see if I remember how to do this real quick. Is this not showing?
No, but here, I'll add it to the stage for you, and there you go.
Thank you. So
you got it.
I also, I write for Badlands Media, but I also have my own Substack. You can find it at the Post Liberal on Substack. You can also just search Ryan DeLarme, and it'll come up. So I've been doing a lot of work for Dauntless Dialogue, who you're all familiar with. And ever since I got to Michigan, basically, I've just been working on scripts, cranking them out left and right. The last one we did, it's going to be probably coming out towards the end of summer. It's called Broken Foundations, and it kind of outlines how charities, 501c3s, foundations are kind of utilized by these basically white-collar criminals to make it seem like they're acting in good faith and goodwill and they're charitable, but really it's to facilitate their agendas. So this has kind of been the case for a long time, and I really dove into it. And you guys will probably really dig the film when it comes out. But in the meantime, this Substack I wrote has a bulk of the information that will be included. So it's been around for basically almost 175 years. The structure that we know is the 501c3 or the foundation. It didn't exist in the way that we know it today. So the very first one actually was created in 1865 by this guy here, George Peabody, who just has the hidden hand symbolism there in his photo. This guy he's kind of a legend among the financial elite. He was an associate of Baron Nathan Mayer Rothschild. He kind of was, some people say, a front for that family. He was a business partner with Junius Spencer Morgan, who is the father of J.P. Morgan. So this is the guy that created the structure that is used by Bill Gates and the Rockefellers and George Soros today. This structure was so wildly successful that they just kept it going, and they really kind of built it out even further. So the very first foundation was called the Peabody Educational Fund. It was ostensibly created, like all charities and all 501c3s, to be this like altruistic endeavor. We're going to educate all of the former, just recently freed slaves. So that was their stated goal of this Peabody Educational Fund. It was endowed with $1 million, which was a lot of money in 1865. And in 4 years, it tripled its investment. So as with all foundations, the fund purported to have noble intentions, but it just what it became was an incredibly powerful financial tool. It had connections. Its board of trustees included multiple people who would go on to be president. So they had Ulysses S. Grant, Grover Cleveland, William McKinley, and Theodore Roosevelt. They were all on the board of directors at one point or another. And yeah, it was so successful that the famous early 1900s robber barons, the Carnegie, Rockefeller, they both ended up utilizing the same structure. And arguably, it was this whole thing, the whole concept of a foundation or a tax-exempt, entity was created by the deep state of yesteryear to facilitate all of their agendas and do it, without being taxed. So this article gets way into it. There's tons of links here to different things. Like over the course of researching, I looked into some of the more popular foundations, more powerful foundations out there. So you got USAID, which is the United States Agency of International Development. It's actually a foundation.
Wow.
And they work in tandem with Monsanto. That's one of the many things they're involved in, is the spread of GMO crops and glyphosate and all that. The ACLU is currently involved in assisting censorship in the whole censorship industrial complex. There's this foundation called Race Forward, formerly called Applied Research Center. It's been around for ages. Right now, they're really one of the many foundations that's really promoting identity politics throughout government, colleges, etc. There's this called the American Press Institute, which is basically a corporate media advocacy group, much like Media Matters and Poynter Institute and all of these other, doctored-in foundations that are just really all about policing journalism. There's the ADL, who we all know and love, and the Aspen Institute. They're all about social engineering. They've steered public thinking for decades. We have the Environmental Defense Fund, and of course the Fabian Society, which hopefully a lot of you guys are familiar with. And then look at all of these foundations here are all connected to the Council on Foreign Relations and the Rockefellers and the Carnegies. You got the Marshall Fund, the Hudson Institute, the Milner Group, of course, the Mount Pelerin Society, which has a whole history to that, the Rand Corporation, the NAACP, the Tavistock, of course, and even the Red Cross and the YMCA. The deep state has fingers in all of them. So, there's a lot of information here. It kind of goes through the whole history, and it gets into something that not a lot of people will know about or remember, called the Reese Committee, which, the Reese Committee and the Church Committee are two of the most important committees that have ever come out of Congress, and yet you hear virtually nothing about them.
Wow.
So, this was a couple decades before the Church Committee, when they were kind of like pulling out the guts of the CIA and exposing it to people, and then subsequently shelved and forgotten. The Reese Committee did the same thing, only it was aimed at these foundations, these larger than life foundations, like the Rockefeller Foundation. The Ford Foundation is a big one. Mm-hmm. And this guy here, Norman Dodd, and if you do subscribe or come to this Substack, I highly recommend watching this whole video. It's interview, G. Edward Griffin interviewing Norman Dodd, and this is just like weeks before he died too.
Wow.
Norman Dodd was, along with Reese, the two big guys running the show on the Reese Committee. And he just goes into all of the dirty background, what was going on at the time that was kind of omitted from the newspapers, the internal drama of the committee, and just like how much pushback they got against these humongous organizations. So it gets into all that. And towards the end of the article, I got the committee's findings, which are very revealing. And so if you're interested in learning about all this, it can be kind of dry stuff, but it's super important for understanding kind of what's going on and how, if you think of the CFR and the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission as like the brains of the octopus, then you could look at these foundations and NGOs as the tentacles that facilitate the will of the head.
Yep. Wow.
So
go ahead. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Anyway.
That's great. Yeah, there's so much good information in that. I mean, one of the things that I've discovered is that they're basically modern life, especially when it comes to these philanthropic organizations sponsored by the globalists, is in part some aspect of globalism. And one of the funny things that I learned watching James Corbett's exhibition on oil, I believe it was, the oil industry and the Rockefellers, is that, we like to think that the victory of the justice system is that they helped break up the Rockefeller company, the Standard Oil Company, and like, oh, isn't that a great, perfect exhibition of how, we don't tolerate monopolies and we don't tolerate globalists and all this great stuff. But what we don't realize is the Rockefellers were all in on that from the get-go, and they actually made most of their money after Standard Oil was broken up because they were doing all this kind of the backroom deals to make sure that they controlled the oligopoly, the new oil baron, company ecosystem afterwards. So quite interesting. And yeah, your post sounds like it's got a lot of good stuff in it. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So all right. So guys, I wanted to, before we get into some videos, I just want to tell you, I'm going to be mentioning this for probably the next at least little while, because we only got 2 short weeks to promote this event, and I've been talking about it for the past couple shows now, where here we are, we've got the Eventbrite page put up, where I'm going to be doing the finishing touches on the landing page for the DJT party. That's DJT's digital birthday block party. It's a birthday celebration and tribute for none other than the greatest patriot in living memory, Donald J. Trump. So it's going to be on his birthday, which is literally only 10 days away, I believe. It's on not this Friday, but next Friday. And I think it's probably going to be like a telethon style event, or we're going to try to have a lot of content, games, bingo, a trivia section. The audience can participate. We actually have a birthday card, happy birthday digital card. So that's what this is right here. So you can literally put your happy birthday on a digital birthday card, and we were going to send this to Donald Trump at the end of the party. And I'll actually be reaching out to Donald Trump's team here before the party to let him know that we're doing this. And, cross your fingers, pray a Hail Mary or two. We might actually get a chance to have, something. Maybe his son will come on. Maybe he'll record a little video for us. Maybe he'll give us a shout out on social media. I don't know, but Trump and Trump team, if you're watching this, we want to celebrate the greatest patriot of living memory, Donald J. Trump, especially during this time where he's being unfairly prosecuted. So I'm gonna show the event page right now, Eventbrite. You can go to djtparty.com, and I will have a functioning RSVP link on there. If you want RSVP right now, you can actually go into the comments or into the description of this video. I just added it, so you might need to refresh the video to get it in the description. But in the comments, there's a little comment about DJT Party, and it's a free event. You can show up for absolutely free. You come to all the amazing games and things we're going to have. We're going to have panelists. We're going to have all sorts of cool stuff. And if you want to become a party supporter and be remembered as somebody who helped celebrate and contribute to the greatest party in living memory, you can also buy a VIP ticket. We'll send you a T-shirt and a pin, and it'll be really cool. So yeah, we've been planning this for a while. Anything you want to say about this?
Did you get the call-in feature figured out?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't have it like totally perfectly set up, but I know we can do it. I still have to go through the process of doing a beta test with it, but we're gonna have call-ins as well. So that's a good reminder.
Yeah, it'll be good to hear from all you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be really fun. The other cool thing is that this is going to be the first We the Media event, as far as I know. So We the Media, Jordan and I are working on basically building out We the Media, and we're going to make it one of the most, let's just say we're going to take back a piece of the public square, and we're going to make it so that other content creators can produce more content, earn more money, support themselves. We don't have to work for our slave masters while we're also trying to produce content at the same time, which is a kind of ironic thing because there's so many people that are like, if you earn a single penny while trying to be a patriot, then you're a patriot. And it's like, well, what's better, working for the man and then helping to enslave your fellow man, or trying to make a business out of yourself? So, but anyway, that's one of the cool things we're going to be doing with We the Media. You guys who are watching the show right now are kind of hearing it first. This is the first time I've ever publicly spoken about this. So, small to medium to large size content creators, we're going to try to create a content creator ecosystem. And this DJ Tea Party is going to be the first event. So definitely check it out. I'm going to post all this stuff in the chat for Rumble, and I also post it as a comment. So anyway, all right, that is it. With that, I'll mention that again before the end of the show. And here we go. Hopefully my video is coming through pretty clear. I've been having issues, guys. If you haven't noticed, my video tends to get kind of choppy for some reason, but it doesn't seem like it's too bad right now. So hopefully it's we're doing okay here. So anyway, all right. Well, what should we do next?
I was thinking we could play some of these clips. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar or aware that Fauci was testifying before Congress today, and there are some highlights that have come out. And then there's also, I just saw this uncensored interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene that happened right afterwards. I just checked it in the way. Yeah, so we'll have to. I haven't even heard it yet. I just saw it and I was like, "Oh, this has got to be good." So it's all in great. Yeah.
Do we want to start with the one at the top, or should we go with the other ones first?
Oh yeah. Let's definitely, at least this is like a short clip. This is Maxine Waters.
Yeah, the lovely, the illustrious,
the kind.
The kind, yeah. Always smiling.
Very happy lady, yeah. Yep. So this is her, basically drumming up that whole narrative of, all of the Trump supporters are planning a civil war, and they're going to start attacking the government, attacking Democrats, etc.
Awesome, okay.
I am going to spend some time with the criminal justice system, with the justice system, asking them, tell us what's going on with the domestic terrorists. Are they preparing a civil war against us? Should we be concerned about our safety? What is he doing with this divisive language? It is dangerous, and we're going to have to make sure that we understand that we're not at risk with this man talking in the way that he's doing. I am going to spend some time.
Okay. So cavalry's coming, everybody.
Yeah. So, that's how they do it, People who only consume this stuff that exists in that echo chamber, they really think that their Trump-supporting neighbor any day now is going to burn down their house or, stick a bayonet in them or something like that.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, well, I guess we'll talk about it more in the Trump section, but I will mention it now that the globalists are absolutely sweating. They're dirtying their drawers. I'm trying to use non-inflammatory language here, but yeah, they are really upset. I saw some pretty insane numbers as far as how much Trump was able to raise. I heard something like 200 million. Been able to raise. So yeah, it's having the total opposite effect of what they are they're trying to do. So isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
All right, so then we got one here from JS. What is this one about?
Oh yeah, I did include this one. So Jordan Sather, just kind of a PSA in case you didn't see this. Jordan Sather made this post. He said, seeing quite a few nameless, faceless accounts around the interwebs calling for violent revolution, posting comments about hangings and executions and all of that, which I'm sure you guys have all seen in comment sections across the internet. It says, be wary of the Fed shills and their psychological operations. They be active right now. And they're like I mean, there are definitely people out there who say these things, but by and large, these are anonymous accounts. Either they're bots or sock puppets or being operated by some contractor in a warehouse somewhere. So just don't feed into that. You know, we all like to talk about feeding people into wood chippers and stuff like that, which, you know, I understand the appeal there. But you know, this very Ray Epps kind of, you know, bot accounts out there trying to get conservatives to do crazy shit. So
Yep.
just be wary of that, because we're the, instead of like, just like with the Trump thing, you know, when a verdict gets handed down that the Democrats don't like, what do? They riot in the streets, they burn things to the ground. And what did we do? Instead of destroying our communities, we raised millions of dollars for Donald Trump overnight. So that's what we do. We play fairly. We play, you know, we play by the rules, and we do things honorably. And that's how we should conduct ourselves always.
100%. Yeah, I could not agree more. You know, it's part of what the cabal wants to do, is that, you know, even being a good person is a narrow path. And when it comes to the battle right now for our freedoms, you know, one of the advantages that the cabal has is they don't have to worry about walking a narrow path. They can do all sorts of immoral, horrible stuff and get away with it in the sense that it'll still achieve their agenda of making a lot of chaos and ruining, you know, good people's lives and things like this. When it comes to good people, you know, freedom fighters, true patriots, I would argue Christian patriots, or anyone, any God-fearing patriot, somebody who actually believes in a higher power, believes in the rule of law, and wants to do right by themselves, their community, and the world. You have to be moral while you're also trying to fight off people who are absolutely immoral. You know, con men, cheaters, rapists, people who will torture your children to make you get angry so that you can, you know, try to step a toe out of line and make things bad for yourself. So it's no small task, everybody. I think this is why it's a community effort to make what we're doing work. And also that, you know, it's very easy to stir angry people up, like you were just saying, with the infiltrators and, you know, Ray Epps types. So there you go. Yeah. All right, so then we got this clip. This is from the Fauci testimony, right, Hal?
This is one of the clips that are out there. I just grabbed one since there's a bunch of them. This was Marjorie Taylor Greene grilling him in Congress today.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fauci, you were quoted on CBS Face the Nation saying it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science. Because I represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes, you said you represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no answer.
Yes, it's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent. But this, as director of the NIH, you did sign off on these so-called scientific experiments. And as a dog lover, I want to tell you this is disgusting and evil, what you signed off on, and these experiments that happened to beagles paid for by the American taxpayer. And I want you to know Americans don't pay their taxes for animals to be tortured like this. So the type of science that you are representing, Mr. Fauci, is abhorrent, and it needs to stop. Mr. Fauci, you also represent the type of science that where you confess that you made up the COVID rules, including
I didn't hear what you
6
said.
feet social distancing and masking of children.
I never said I made anything up.
You admitted that you made it up. You made it up as you went.
I didn't say I made it up.
So are you saying this is fake news, Mr. Fauci?
I didn't say I made anything up.
What did you say?
I said that it is not based in science and it just appeared.
But this is science.
What does dogs have to do with anything that we're talking about today?
These are scientific experiments. This is what you signed off on. But you also told the American people they had to distance by 6 feet. They had to wear masks. But let's also talk a little bit further about the type of science that you represent. NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers, a fact that's been hidden. Let's talk about the fact about, is it right for scientists and doctors getting paid by the American people, government taxpayer paychecks to get patents where they're paid millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in royalty fees, especially when the NIH and these government agencies, most powerful agencies in our country, are recommending medical suggestions and advice and making up guidelines like 6 feet distancing and masking of children. Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
Mr. Chairman,
Fauci,
objection. Objection.
I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Raskin.
Gentlelady will suspend.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of order.
just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked, and he belongs in
Gentlelady
prison.
will suspend.
All right. Well, there you go.
No, there's
Typical
that.
circus
No.
show.
I love it. It's like watching I don't know, like a boomer mom like try to bring up a bunch of points she saw on the internet without having like a clear, concise argument, just kind of like rattling off the things that she saw.
Right.
But it definitely makes for entertaining. I don't know. It's just like when people's first, people who aren't aware of these things, when they first see it being, I guess, brought to their attention via Marjorie Taylor Greene in this way where it's like, they're going to be smearing her and making fun of her in the media. It's just like, we need to be, I don't know. It's just, sometimes I wonder if we should, like, if Marjorie's team should help her, like, like do these things a little more structured, I guess. I don't know. But it's cool that she got to bring up the beagle thing,
Mm-hmm. I think that was pretty shocking. At the very least, like, people should know the degree to which the modern medical system seemingly has no respect for life and is itself a kind of like, what is it? Group 731, I believe it was, the Japanese who were themselves inspired by the Rockefellers to perform absolutely horrific Mengele-style experiments on the Chinese people during World War II.
Met behind the
731.
sun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you have, so I think people need to know that this stuff is happening actively with our taxpayer dollars. That's the crazy thing about the modern day slave state, is that everybody's got to earn a living, right? And you end up working for companies, not all the time. It's not like they're all doing these horrible things, but we're supporting a system that ultimately is designed to harvest our energy so it can do horrible stuff like this and enslave other people. And so people need to know about that. But I agree with you. I think unfortunately I don't really know how many people we're winning over when that's the kind of stuff that's being shared by our side of the aisle, if that we want to use that terminology. But I'm glad somebody's throwing a few punches at these guys at the very least. So
it's like exactly. It's definitely I think maybe net positive because it's getting put out there. But the way it's being presented, it's just like, I don't know, it leaves me wanting, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. What do you guys think about this? So let us know your comments in the chat. Like, do you think, what is the ultimate good for something like the commentary we just saw from Marjorie Taylor Greene? And is there maybe a better way to do it? Just let us know. I'm curious.
She could just take some more persuasion classes.
There you go.
I don't know. But like, I like what she's doing overall. I'm not criticizing that. Just the delivery.
100%. Exactly. All right. Then we got this. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we got this other one. This is a follow-up. It was an interview with her, I believe, right after the hearing.
Okay, here we go.
In that room? No, absolutely not. I mean, everything I said is correct. It's how the American people feel. It's what we know to be a fact. It's all the evidence has been proven true. We have Jamie Raskin in there accusing us of worshiping Trump. Worshiping as a convicted felon. Well, yeah, so is George Floyd. And everybody, and you all too, the media worship George Floyd. Democrats worship George Floyd. There were riots burning down the fucking country over George Floyd. And Raskin is in there saying we worship him. Excuse me, let me correct you, and this is really important. I don't worship, I worship God. God. And Jesus is my savior. I don't worship President Trump. And I'm really sick and tired of the bullshit annex I have to deal with constantly from the Democrats. So that's what we just went through in there. And then they're sitting there, they can attack my character all day long. What's his face in there, whoever was talking last was calling me insane. But yet we can't say, oh, they're attacking my character. Oh no, it's nonstop BS and annex. You want to know why? The Democrats don't have anything. They're responsible for the lockdowns, forced vaccinations, kids being forced to stay home, people committing suicide, and all the horrors that this country lived through during COVID. Fauci belongs in prison. He should be tried for mass murder, and he should be tried for crimes against humanity. That's how I feel after that hearing. That's how the American people feel.
Right, there you go.
See that? I wish she would have said that during the
I
hearing.
know, right? Yeah, that was great. I mean, I love her, Pat. Like, as much as I can critique, the way she handles it, or maybe the sound of her voice or something like that. I think ultimately that's the kind of spirit that is gonna. We all need to get mad as hell and not take it anymore. But then from that, we need to get strategic, learn how to play the game right, and join together so we can, move the needle down the court as well as possible. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And I also hate Raskin too, so I understand how she feels.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, awesome. Well, then with that, why don't we, let's see what time is it. Why don't we take a quick break here to talk about one of our amazing sponsors, Ascent Nutrition. So, Ascent Nutrition, I've known Lance for years. He's the founder of Ascent Nutrition. I think you've known him for quite some time too. And he has some amazing products. And let me clue you guys in a little secret here. Many of the things that were developed for Ascent Nutrition were specifically designed to deal with certain problems we face in the modern age. We'll put it that way. If anybody's familiar with some of the shenanigans that we had to deal with a few years ago when there was the 2020 election, and there were people trying to push all sorts of things and preventing us from having the medicines we need. There are other natural ways to deal with that. And one of the interesting things is this product here, organic Agarikon mushroom powder. First of all, the mushroom powder that Ascent Nutrition produces is some of the most potent mushroom powder in the industry. The other thing, it's the most cleanest. So when I say that, I don't just mean, oh yeah, it's the cleanest, it's great. I mean, literally, like, out of any company that posts their information about whether or not their products are clean, Ascent is one of the fewest. It's like less than 1% of the nutritional supplement companies out there actually post what are called their certificates of analysis. And Agarikon is also grown very strong. So one of the cool things about Agarikon is that it came out as a result of Paul Stamets' work, that Agarikon mushroom can actually support, I have to use the right language here because I don't want to get Lance in trouble here, but it supports healthy lung and respiratory health and acts as a support agent when you're dealing with viruses. We'll put it that way. Do you remember the story from when we wrote that ad for him? You want to mention that?
Sure. It was Paul Stamets. He's like a famous mycologist, kind of, I guess, I don't know, influencer. I don't know a whole lot about him. I actually learned about him through this story. But I don't remember a lot of the details. I know he was sent like the results of some test or study that he wasn't actually supposed to receive, basically showing that Agarikon is being used and developed by the DoD to protect soldiers from biowarfare, which is typically going to be these viruses like coronaviruses, Marburg, Ebola, E. coli, all these things. Apparently, Agarikon can protect you from them. So the DoD was looking into that, and somehow Stamets got received something. I don't know how or why, and I mean, this could even be a made up story for all we know. But there's a lot of people talking about it on the internet as if it's fact. So,
right.
But apparently this biodefense program that the DoD was working on utilized Agarikon mushrooms. He got the result, and he wasn't supposed to. So all of a sudden, he's got helicopters flying over his house and people banging down his door. Huh.
Yeah. So it basically, if might have heard, there's this big scare with bird flu right now. There's always some scare that folks at the World Health Organization are always trying to breathe down our neck about. But with a product like Agarikon mushroom and various other health products provided by Ascent Nutrition, you can support your health in ways that are overall beneficial. And of course, you should always listen to your doctor. So with that, you can check out the link in our description that for Agarikon. You can also check out the link in the description for the DJT party happening next week. Don't forget about that. Secure your free ticket today. Sign up for the DJT party right now and support us through Ascent Nutrition, one of our amazing sponsors. All right. So you want to do some rapids and then we'll get into our features?
Oh, you got rapids?
Yeah, just a handful of rapids. So quick headline blast.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's not gonna...
Let's see here. Where is that? No, that's not it. Okay. Well, yeah, as some of you guys know, there was, or most of you know, I'm sure everybody knows on Earth, but Trump was falsely convicted last week, I would say, of this trial, this hush money case with Stormy Daniels. One thing I didn't realize, I knew they had pulled a lot of shenanigans with a lot of these cases, but what I didn't realize is that the E. Jean Carroll case. I don't know, let me guys know in the chat if you've heard about this. So E. Jean Carroll, that's that wackadoodle who said that Trump raped her. They could not convict him of any rape because there was no case. But she tried to sue him for civil infractions as a result of this alleged rape case, but there was like 20 years ago. So there's this thing called the statute of limitations. Basically what it means is that if a crime happened beyond a certain point, I believe in this case it's 7 years, that unfortunately from a civil perspective, meaning suing for damages, you can't actually sue a person after 7 years. Well, what they did in New York State is they literally changed the laws for a single year. They altered the statute of limitation laws so that she could sue Trump. And those changes only last for a year, and then it reverts back to what it was before. So, I mean, if you need any more of an example of a rigged system, there it is. Here's another example of a rigged system here. We got the jury selection for Hunter Biden is set to begin, the gun trial. So, Hunter Biden had some mishaps with some guns, we'll put it that way. I believe it's been a while, so I don't remember the specific details, but the jury selection begins in the case brought against him by special counsel David Weiss, who has charged the first son with making a false statement during the purchase of a firearm, making a false statement related to information required to be kept by a licensed firearm dealer, and one count of possession of a firearm by a person who is an unlawful user or addicted of a controlled substance. So basically, it's like the same rules, excuse me, the same rules they throw at us to prevent us from having firearms. It's kind of the goose is getting the gander. So there's that one. We have top judge blocks complaints against Trump judge Aileen Cannon. So this is in the Jack Smith case. Let's see. Chief Judge William Poyer Jr. is in a newly released order dated May 22nd instructed the circuit court's clerk to stop accepting new complaints against the U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon after the clerk was flooded with complaints. Quote, since May 16, 2024, the clerk of the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit has received over 1,000 judicial complaints against Judge Cannon that raise allegations that are substantively similar to the allegations raised in previous complaints. Judge Pryor, an appointee of former President George W. Bush. These complaints appear to be part of an orchestrated campaign. So, do you know much about this one?
No, I always kind of thought this one was honestly like more of a distraction than anything. Right. Why don't we talk about Burisma, and like the laptop and all this other stuff? Like, where they're going to talk about this gun thing, like that's going to take front and center. He'll probably get convicted on something small. It'll be like tossing us like, oh, look at he's not above the law. He got convicted of this gun thing. That's like minuscule in comparison to the other things that they could be investigating him for. But that's kind of my take. I haven't dug too much into it because that's kind of what it seemed to me on the surface. But I could be wrong. There could be more to it than that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure either. I know that what I do know about the gun case is that that basically it's one of the attempts, I think, on the part of the Patriots to exemplify the corruption of the Biden family. and kind of bring some of that to light. So that can't hurt, certainly, when we're dealing with arguably, as Trump likes to call them, one of the most, what is it, the greatest crime family to sit in the White House in U.S. history, something like that.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
I know, right? So here we've got, so we'll play a little clip of this. We got Trump discussing a possibility of prison, says conviction has been very hard on Melania. So let's go ahead and play this, and then we'll talk generally about the Trump situation, the Trump conviction that happened last week. Here we go.
The arraignment date for 4 days before the RNC.
Yeah, well, that's part of the game.
It is. Some have suggested you could appeal straight to the Supreme Court because of the special nature of this case. When it comes to the legal maze that you're still facing, and the judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It could.
How do you face what that could be?
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, oh, no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything. You just, the way it is. Think of it. They have all my books. They went for 5 years, they sued me getting my tax returns, right? At the end of 5 years, they got them. The Supreme Court actually gave it to them. That was the end of it. That was it. They never found anything. They hired the best accounting firms. I had a pure gold firm. They call it a gold-rated firm. I don't know, it's supposed to be. Who knows? But with all that stuff, for years you heard about my tax.
They never looked into the Clinton Foundation.
And they never found it. They never went all the way with the Clinton Foundation. They never went all the way with the Clinton Foundation, which is sort of interesting, isn't it? But so that could happen. I don't know that the public would stand it. I'm not sure the public would stand for it. With a,
if they tried house arrest or
I think it would be tough for the public to take. At a certain point, there's a breaking point.
People ask you, why do you do this? How can you do this? I mean, not to mention the rally after rally, the energy. But maybe the question isn't how do you do this over and over, but how does your family do this? All the obstacles, these are things you care about, your ambitions for the country. What about everybody around you?
So I think in many ways it's tougher on them than it is on me. They're good people, all of them, everyone. I have a wonderful wife who has to listen to this stuff all the time. They do that for this reason. They do that, all these salacious names that they put in of these people. And I'm not even allowed to defend myself because of a gag order. Think of it. But they put this stuff in to create havoc. These are bad people. I know everything they're doing. I know every move they make. I get it. But a lot of people don't. But it's tougher. I think it's probably, in many ways, it's tougher on my family than it is on me.
How's Melania doing?
She's fine, but I think it's very hard for her. I mean, she's fine. But it's, she has to read all this crap.
What about Barron? People started to focus on Barron recently.
He's amazing, actually, in a certain way. He's tall, good-looking guy. He's a very good student. And he's applied to colleges and gets into everywhere he goes. He's very sought after from the standpoint. He's a very smart guy. He's a very tall guy, but he's a great kid. He's cool. He's pretty cool, I'll tell you. It's very interesting. The colleges, 6 months ago, you look at a college and you sort of want a certain college, and then you see all of these colleges are rioting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe you want to go to a different kind of a college, because there's plenty of colleges that we also like that are different, and they don't riot.
Right, there you go.
Nice.
So I like what he says. I know every move they make. I know everything they're doing. Not many people do. So
that's so good.
That was great. So so yeah, I mean, he said, I'm not sweating it. I'm not too worried about it. And I think, that's because he's not sweating it. I think he knows ultimately that this is the what's on trial right now is not him. As we've said many times in the show, it's the justice system. It's our political system. It's the people that were put and elected into positions of power to represent and defend and uphold our rights, and time again have let the evil people go into the building they were supposed to protect and do all sorts of things that they weren't supposed to do. So yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. I haven't seen this clip yet, but I liked what he said. He seems very cool, calm. He doesn't seem like he's panicking necessarily. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. You guys, let us know what you think. Did you catch any any comms in there or anything like that. I mean, he's so good these days about dropping all sorts of hints about stuff. It's like I'm hard pressed to find a clip where he's not saying, how many times he's been to DC or, making a hand gesture or something like that. So that's always interesting. All right. So then the last one here. Trump joins TikTok, sprints to 3.1 million followers in 24 hours. I am actually really curious, like what is the record of people getting high follower counts on TikTok? And does Trump now have the record there too? That would be hilarious. Because, TikTok is mainly young people. I think it's something like 15 to 25-year-olds is their major demographic. So,
yeah, it's the most widely used social media platform in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty huge. So we got belatedly tapping into a social media platform favored by young voters. Trump joined TikTok on Saturday and amassed more than 3.1 million followers in his 24 hours on a platform he tried to ban when he was president. Trump's inaugural post chronicled Hero's welcome he received when he entered a packed Newark arena on Saturday night's UFC fights, 2 days after being convicted of falsifying business records in a blatant case of the judicial system being weaponized for political purposes. That's absolutely right. So I'm kind of curious. I haven't seen the post. Have you seen it yet?
The post?
Yeah, the one that got him the 3.1 million followers.
No, I'm not really on TikTok. My mom is.
Me
she
either.
might.
Yeah, I got it right here. You want to see it?
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look real quick. It won't take but a moment.
Oh yeah, the UFC fight this weekend.
There we go.
The president is now on TikTok. It's my honor.
Yeah, okay. I did see it. I didn't realize. Kid Rock on there.
Yeah,
All right,
so
there you go.
My brother was watching the fights this weekend. Okay. There was multiple fighters jumped the fence and went up to go shake his hand and stuff. So it's like happening.
No way. That's awesome. I love that.
It looks like Dana White even might have had a role to play in getting him on TikTok too, which is interesting.
Yeah, right. Like, how did that happen? I mean, clearly it's not like he's sitting there making TikTok videos. But one of the cool things we learned about visiting Clay Clark's compound for the Patriotic Podcasters event that happened a few months ago is General Flynn was there, along with Laura Logan and a whole bunch of other cool people that are pretty close to Trump. And Flynn said something really interesting. He said that, a lot of the stuff that's coming out on Dan Scavino Jr.'s platforms, Instagram, Twitter, he's involved in. Do you remember what he said?
Yeah, he said that Trump's picking the music. He's actually involved in these social media posts. Like he's hanging out with Dan Scavino, kind of in his ear, saying, yeah, let's do this, let's do that, let's use this song here, that kind of stuff, which I thought that was pretty cool. Most people hire social media teams and they just do it. I'm sure there's a lot of that happening too, but it's cool that he actually hand picks things.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was so cool because, I mean, it's like, not only does he's not, or what's the right word here? He's embodying an image or an archetype that's kind of designed to appeal to young people and the rebelliousness of youth and things like this. But he also seems to know enough about modern technology and meme ease, if you want to put it that way, like how to speak
pop
through
culture.
Memes. Yeah, pop culture, that he can actually put together some really amazing stuff. And those Dan Scavino videos are loaded with symbolism. So I just thought that was the coolest thing. Like he might actually be, plus in it all the way to our hearts. So so yeah, okay. So then let's where to next? What do you think we should do now?
Here, I'll try to present here. I think I remembered how to do it. I can just go to where is it? I don't know if this pops up. Is it on the screen yet or no?
Not yet. You got to go into the back end of StreamYard and hit add to stage.
It's just not showing up when I have screen. Okay. Yeah, see, it's not giving me the option to add stage.
That's weird. Okay. Here, I got it for you.
All right. Thank you, sir. So here we are. Emmanuel Macron, everyone's favorite French prime minister. So it may be shocking for some of you folks to hear, but there is actually still a war going on in Ukraine. The mainstream media, which, much like a toddler who's grown bored of their toy, they've pretty much dropped the conflict in Ukraine in favor of a shiny new war in the Middle East that they constantly talk about now. So we've over the course of the last 2 years, we've gone over the myriad reasons why Ukraine will never win this war, from Russia's far superior artillery and ammunition production to the quality of their soldiers. But really, it all boils down to personnel numbers. It's a numbers game. Russia, being a massive country, has a much, much larger military. When you combine that with the fact that it seems like not all men of fighting age in Ukraine really feel an obligation to protect a Western installed puppet government in Kiev, they've been fleeing the country in droves since this began. It doesn't paint a very optimistic picture of the war. I think most people agree it's a proxy war. It's a Western proxy war against Russia, which means that it's a military-industrial complex cash grab. It serves to weaken Russia. That's the talking point that we constantly hear. And of course, we all know that the establishment doesn't really want America to thrive. It seems like it wants America to kind of fall. And starting these endless wars is a great way to funnel our resources and our dollars out of the country and into corrupt hands. But I digress. So the main point was to highlight that Ukraine's troop count is low. It's dwindling. The average age of the troops, I think, is like 35, which is unusually high. They've resorted to pulling middle-aged and older men off of buses and forcing them to the front lines to fight.
Oh, God.
And it's almost always against their will, or else they would have joined. They would have, So this is a conscripted army. And the people they do have, they're not exactly the most capable fighters, which leads us to this article. So the headline is Macron gathering European coalition to send military trainers to Ukraine. And that is, of course, the front story, is that they're just sending them there to train people. But there might be more to it than that. So as per the article, French President Emmanuel Macron is busy working behind the scenes on a controversial new initiative to assemble an army of troops from NATO countries to be sent to Ukraine. For now, the plan is to send Western soldiers in the capacity as trainers and military advisors for Ukraine's armed forces, with the training likely to take place in the west of the war-ravaged country, or at least far from the front lines. So the key words in that paragraph are "for now," because what this is, to me, is a failed attempt to replenish Ukraine's reserves using NATO troops. That's like, we're sending them there to train the 10 people that are left fighting. It's like, no, you're sending them there to be the new front lines. You're sending them there to be soldiers because you've run out of Ukrainian men to send to their deaths. So remember, the Western hegemony, as we like to call it here, it's U.S. led, but it encompasses, NATO, the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, many nations, Western nations. The international criminal apparatus, as we know it, really is the Western Bloc. It controls it for now, or at least it's what it looks like on the outside. Anyway, that's how it has been for all these years until what seems like now. But that includes France, and of course, it includes Macron, who is a known establishment stooge, and so of course he's going to help facilitate this war. The article continues, quote, Paris has been working for a while now with Ukrainians on this, a person familiar with France's initiative told the Financial Times, but the plan hasn't been launched formally by NATO leadership. So that's because a lot of these countries, they understand what NATO is. It's a tool for the MIC to bypass the UN Security Council, so it's like they don't need to get clearance for wars. They can just start them now and pretty much do whatever they want. So there are nations who are part of NATO, because, if they pulled out of NATO, it would draw the ire of NATO and the big dogs. And, the military-industrial complex might put targets on their backs. So, it's similar to when you see any inner-city businesses paying the mafia protection fees to keep them from harassing them. These countries are reluctantly member nations of NATO. But that doesn't mean that they support every decision that the neocons in the West make. So here we have lower down in the video we have, or in the article, if you scroll down a bit, There is a little bit of propaganda coming from the Ministry of Defense. It's in a tweet. I don't know if you can get to that.
Well, you're sharing, so I can't like do much.
Oh, I thought you were sharing it. My bad. Okay. Now, here we are. This is a tweet from the Ministry of Defense. So one of the big things, the reason that Russia always says this is why we're doing this, is because they promised that NATO wouldn't expand any further north when they tore down the Berlin Wall. And here is the Ministry of Defense saying, here's the reality. NATO never agreed it wouldn't expand and has been open to new members since it was founded in 1949. Its job is keeping its members safe. So it's kind of misleading. Like they said, NATO never agreed it wouldn't expand, but yes, it literally did. It said that. Like that was part of the Minsk Accords. So they're saying, well, we've been taking in member nations ever since 1949. So obviously, it's very deceptive. And so, yeah, that's a nice little piece of propaganda. This article came by way of Zero Hedge, and yeah, just an update. So we could be seeing NATO troops, further aggravating and raising tension between the West and Russia, which obviously is just going to make this war go on a lot longer. A lot more people are going to suffer, and a lot more American tax dollars are going to flow over there. So that was that. Any comments?
Not. Yeah, I'll just mention this, that I heard rumors that NATO was kind of like, the Fourth Reich, in the sense that a lot of the people in it used to be former Nazis. What I didn't realize, I was listening to Breaking History early today, which is kind of like my new dig. I love that show. And
nice.
They were talking about how apparently the Nuremberg trials, the Nazis that were persecuted were simply the ones that refused to come over in Project Paperclip. Apparently there was a clip of Assad from a few months ago where he's kind of talking about this. I think the head of Syria, I believe, forgive me for not knowing all the names as beautifully as they do, but anyway, yeah. So if you look at the map of NATO and you compare it against the height of the Nazi empire or conquest in the 1942, it's remarkably similar. So just a fun little fact there.
Nice. All right, so moving on. Here we got another one. Anti-Israel protesters block LGBTQ pride parade in Philadelphia. So it's like the Soros-funded NGOs clash in the streets. So basically there was a pride parade. It was happening in Philadelphia, and everyone's so wrapped up in identity politics on that side of the aisle. I am pro this, I'm anti that, whatever. And they make it their whole personality. They put the pride flags in their profile, the Ukraine flags. They just like, this is me. Look at me. I am someone else crafted my entire personality. So, some people are more pro-Palestine than they are pro-LGBTQ. So those people decided to block the other people in the middle of their pride parade. And I've got some pretty cool clips here that we can show just of the Brungle Fest that's going on here with all these folks.
What a ragtag bunch.
Man.
It's like something out of South Park. You got people like in, BDSM gear, furries running around. It's like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, it's like, who gets the most identity politics points? And,
right.
But, it's fun to see. The problem is that these are just people, and they're being manipulated by forces they don't even realize exist.
That's right. Yep.
So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of show that. Let's see, what else do I got here? I think that's it for me, honestly. I have this whole Balenciaga dig, but there's like it's pretty long-winded. So I might save that for another day.
Okay. That's cool.
There's like a 10-minute video and like commentary for that, and then a whole background. So maybe that'd be better off for once I finish this piece. So the whole point of this is that I'm working with Adam Riva, Dauntless Dialogue, on a piece with one of the new video editors that he just hired. It's all about Balenciaga and kind of the dark side of the fashion industry in general, which, it goes way beyond Balenciaga. So that's something that will probably be coming out in fall.
Okay.
I'm working on it now, and sometime within this month, we'll be doing a deep dive on Balenciaga. But
awesome.
In the interest of time, I think it'd be probably better to save that one.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, if you all want to know, you've got like half a dozen different scripts that you provided for them.
Yeah, what was it? Time of Deceit, the Badlands film was the eighth script I wrote. That's
right. Yeah, it was basically you wrote and came up with the whole thing, other than like a few suggestions, as far as I remember. So, kick butt there. It was a really great film, obviously. I think it's going to help wake up a lot of people. And you've got the Men Behind the Curtain series that you've done. So you can find all that stuff on dauntlessdialogue.com. That's dauntlessdialogue.com. I will pop it in the chat for everybody. And of course, you can go there on your own. And it's really cost effective. I mean, so much so that I'm like, Adam, come on, you got to charge more money for this. People don't think, But in all seriousness, no, it's like $5 a month, and for like better than Netflix quality material. So yeah, there you go. So that's Dauntless Dialogue. Okay, so then I guess what we'll do then is let me just quickly go through that history of globalism one, and then we'll do the book of the month and start to close out. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that we could talk about, how we got to this point. How do we get to the point where we're all separated, we no longer talk to each other, we're all working for most people are working for companies that are either directly supporting globalism, like the NIH. How many people work in government? Government is the largest employer on earth, the US government in particular. You have the intelligence apparatus, people working directly for the CIA, FBI, any number of three-letter agencies. Or you could be having your own home business, but if you pay taxes, if you pay your fees, if you do whatever you need to do, then no matter what, no matter how hard you try, you are supporting the globalist empire, and you are helping through that globalist empire to enslave your fellow man. That's the craziness of the current world we're living in right now. So I wanted to kind of talk about, like, how did we get there? And there's a clip, I'll only play a few minutes of it, of this man here. So he is Curtis Bowers, and he has two films. One's called Agenda, Grinding America Down, and Agenda 2, Masters of Deceit. So if you go to the links in the description, you can also go to vigilant.news or the show notes, which is also in the description, and you can scroll down to the Substack section for myself, and you can find a link to this article and these films. They're pretty cheap. You can get them for like $4 on Amazon. I'll probably watch them at some point. And so what Bowers says is that the communists of the 1930s, who were well entrenched in the U.S. at that point, knew that the agenda of installing communism would only work through gradually introducing socialism to break down the capitalist economy that has proven itself to provide more prosperity to the general population than any other system. And that's one of the things he mentioned. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of it, and then we'll continue with the history here.
Back in 1992, an older friend of my father who was from St. Louis asked me to go to this meeting that the Communist Party USA was having at the University of California, Berkeley. And he had studied communism and written books about communism back in the 60s and stuff. And he was curious because if you'll remember, back in 1989, the Berlin Wall had come down and everyone was saying communism is dead, it's over. Then in 91, in December, the Soviet Union dissolved. And so this is 6 months later, the summer of 92, and the Communist Party USA is having a meeting. So he asked me to go out to this meeting. He said, would you go out there and just see what they're talking about? Because we won. This thing's over. And so I went to that, and for 3 days I sat there in breakout sessions and lectures and listened to these hardcore communists. And one thing shocking about it too, I thought it'd be college radical since it was at Berkeley. So I dressed like a college radical with some radical t-shirt on. So I walk into the auditorium. There's 14 or or 1,500 50, 60, and 70-year-olds with briefcases. And I thought, whoa, this is actually serious. It's not just some radicals. And many of those exact people, as I researched them later, ended up being in Obama's cabinet in 2008. And that's what motivated me to make the movie, because I realized, well, these are the people that were at this communist meeting with me back in 1992. But at that meeting, they laid out this plan, how they wanted to take America down from the inside. They were going to focus all their energies on that now. They'd been focusing on it for a while, but they realized they could never outspend America because capitalism and free enterprise is so successful. And they that woke them up. Okay, we got to go to plan B. They just keep building more and more. And of course, we had all the years of Reagan where he'd really built the military up. So they realized we're in trouble here. And so that's what they talked about, the meeting, how they were going to do that from the inside. And I didn't think that much about it, went on with my life. But then again, 16 years later in 2008 from 92, when I remembered what they had talked about, like one thing that is so clear how it had changed. They had said back in 92, we're going to use the environmental movement to take down the free enterprise system in America. And in 92, that didn't make sense because that was not a big movement. It was literally people, chaining themselves to trees in Oregon so they can't cut them down. I mean, it was nothing. And so I was like, how would you do that? But in 2008, An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore had come out. It was the biggest movement in the world, and it still is, because they realized it's the ultimate vehicle for totalitarian control because it's a global problem, so it demands global solutions by a global government. That's the way they look at it. So that's why that issue will never go away, no matter how many facts we have and how many charts we can show them. Hey, it's not going up, and if it went up a little bit, it actually would be good. Warm.
All right, so
wow.
There you go. It's a pretty great clip, right?
Yeah, I need to see this movie.
I know it. Yeah. Maybe we'll watch it when you get back or something, because I definitely want to check it out. So there's this post came from a guy named Wall Street Apes. So shout out to you, Wall Street Apes, on Twitter. That's where I got that clip from. And so I started to do a free write, and I'm going to read you the free write right now, because basically I think there's a history and there's a way of life that we used to have in the United States that has been totally lost. And, as a result of that, we kind of don't forget that what brought the founding fathers here was a degree of freedom that many of us in the modern age just have no idea what that was like. But imagine if your economy, your town, really didn't need money that much, that you could live a very good life by not really having to deal with money at all, and only dealing with a little bit of it for various things. So you could have food, you could have water, you could have shelter, you could engage in commerce with your neighbors who had other skills and trades, and through very simple economic systems, you could basically live free, have the family there, have your kids raised by you, have your kids play with your neighbors, like all sorts of stuff that we just don't have any idea about. And one of the things he talked about in the video is how, in order to bring that about, they had to destroy the family unit. So years ago, I discovered in my sociological research and anthropological research that the best conditions for raising children was a healthy amount of social nutrients, as I like to call them. Children raised through these in these conditions are often strong-minded, emotionally balanced, creative, have a high IQ, morally upstanding, and productive. Kids that actually enjoy contributing to their families and communities. That's one thing in our modern age. It's like we've just so totally accepted the idea that your kids are going to kind of like hate you, hate your family, hate doing anything for the family. You watch any of these Disney Channel show, the children often have rabid contempt for their parents, for society at large. They don't want to do anything besides, play video games or go to the mall. And that was not always the way it was. So these people that are raised in a healthy condition, are often very hard to trick with globalist propaganda because they're critical thinkers, wise with years of real life experience, and capable of understanding what true morality and the rule of law looks like. In other words, we're talking about the same people who came to the early Americas and raised up the generation that would become the founding fathers of the United States. So there's a book called Brain Rules for Radicals by John Medina. It's a book me and my wife are listening to right now. And it takes the stuff that I've kind of had my own theories about for years, and it provides a lot of science for it. And I'm just going to sum up a few things here. Basically, what he did is he took a massive amount of neurological research, science research about all sorts of things related to how do you raise a smart kid. And one of the things they discovered is that all these DVDs for, a high IQ DVD that's going to train your kid before it learns how to do anything, unfortunately, they don't seem to work all that well. This is what this researcher found out. Now, let me just preface all this by saying, if you did any of this stuff for your child, you should not, beat yourself up or anything like that. I'm not trying to attack you or anything like that. Being a parent is an insanely difficult job, especially when you live in this society. And I have no doubt that I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes as a parent, and we all try to do our best. So this is not an attack on anybody. But what it basically said, what he said, is that if you want to have healthy kids, mentally competent, high IQ, emotionally balanced, they need a lot of social interaction. You need an adult talking to them, asking them what they think, engaging their curiosity, things like this. And then one other thing that's really important that we have kind of lost touch with is you need social modeling. So what is social modeling? Well, social modeling is when you have, actually, I'll flip it to this one real quick. Okay. Social modeling is when you're watching two other people talk. So if you're a kid and you're doing social modeling, you're not just watching your mother do stuff around the house, because that's not social interaction. You're actually watching two adults talk like adults and be around each other and engage each other. That's what social modeling is. So even if you're raising your kid with it, daddy's out at work and you've got mommy at home, and which is kind of like the high ideal right now, like trad wife, trad family, right? Traditional family. We look back to the 1950s, we see, enough money to be made so dad could bring in home the bacon, or we've got enough money so that mom can stay at home. When we look to that, we're like, oh, well, that's like the ideal, clearly. But according to this research in Brain Rules, that's not necessarily the case. What he ended up saying here, and this is Brain Rules for Baby, by the way, that same book I was just mentioning, is that you need social modeling. You need two adults, more, actively having conversations around the baby and talking to the baby and the toddler for that social nutrient to be the richest and most powerful that it's going to be. And what you don't have that is you have, a child that doesn't have these social nutrients. So basically what I'm talking about is that it takes a village. The destruction of our villages, the way we once organized our communities in a civilization, was thoroughly destroyed by the early 20th century. So we're talking like the 1910s, 1920s. The rise of industrialization began in the 1780s, progressed and exploded in the 1860s, and finally completed its changing of human civilization by the 1920s. So what happened? Well, who could have thought that the quality of life of these industrial nations, as it improved, we got clean water, stable food, things like this, that we actually started to have our communities eroded. So as life got easier through improved technology and supply chains, the wisdom of honor, duty, healthy culture, and its dedication to our fellow man was upturned by the carefully rolled out media machine. So what was the goal? To upturn the careful web of cultural norms, values, and traditions that bound communities together. So basically, imagine this. This is the life we used to kind of have, where mom and dad were at home taking care of the homestead. Kids were there helping with mom and dad. And then you had other people, usually extended family, that were around in these situations. But what started to happen with the industrial era is that as it took more and more technology. And back then, we don't necessarily think of the steam engine as high technology, but back then it was pretty sophisticated. And then all the machine parts and various other things that needed to be created to create factories, that was a pretty new thing. And in order to have that stuff, you needed to go and work in one of these places. Certainly your average person didn't have, a steam engine to work with. But if you were working in, for example, Lowell, Massachusetts, or Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is around where I grew up. I actually helped renovate a bunch of houses with my father back when I was a teenager in the late 90s. And the houses were these 2 to 3 story houses where you had kind of like a somewhat big first floor and then, progressively smaller floors. And I come to find out back when I was talking to somebody who I was working with at the time, that the houses were built for extended families, that the homes that were built around, 1880 all the way up to 1910 in that area were designed for families where you had a mom and a dad, the aunts and uncles, the grandparents, and then all their kids all living in one house, which is like mind blowing to me. Like now, why don't we do that now? Because clearly that would make life a lot easier. So, well, it's because at the time, if you wanted to survive in the modern age back then, you needed to have everybody working for the most part. Now, not everybody in the sense that literally everybody, but you needed to have all the men in the family working. Often, there were at least a couple of kids that were working in these factory conditions. And anyone who knows the history of the Lowell mills or the Lawrence mills know that they have a reputation for employing children who would be worked in some cases to death, not really getting paid a lot, so that these industrialists at that age, like the Carnegies, these kind of things would have, or these kind of people would have this modern industry. So then by the time you have that, you have the 1890s or so, and all the way up to 1920s, you have the birth of this type of industrial civilization. So you've got factories where people have to go and work. And you've got the radio coming out where in order to earn a living, mom's still at home taking care of the kids, but, it's a lot less there's less support because the entrenched community has been destroyed. And by the time 1950s comes around, that's when you have the Leave It to Beaver neighborhoods. That's where there is not really community gardens anymore. There's not really ability to raise chickens or whatnot anymore. Now you better damn well have Papa making all the money that he needs to earn for the family, or you're not going to make it. And so by the time the 1950s came around, that's when TV really started to make a big launch or intrusion into people's lives. And a few years after that, you had the cultural revolutions of the 1960s. So I'm going to read this paragraph. By the 1960s, the splendor of cars, TV, refrigerators, blenders, and dozens of other nuclear-age machines made the colonialist self-sufficient lifestyle seem primitive. Who would want to work on a farm when you could drive your car to work and come home to a Leave It to Beaver neighborhood with perfect grass and a model home? While all this was happening, the delicate womb of the village, so the village is the thing that we used to raise our children in, that would make them these smart, highly emotionally balanced, educated, life experienced people, was destroyed. And its support system for parents was completely upended. Children were now raised in nuclear families, a term which, oddly enough, became popular alongside the awesome power of nuclear weapons. Father was finally out of the home, which is what the communists wanted. That's one of the things that he says in the clip later, is that, the communists of 1930s were talking about, we're never going to get this communism thing off the ground in the United States if fathers are at home. So what we need to do is we need to use inflation. We need to drive up the cost of living so that fathers have to go work a 40-hour-a-week job, and finally they'll be out of the home. Mother had to take care of all the house on her own while at the same time raising children. The Cultural Revolution of the 1960s, which arguably did a lot to help inspire generation, was itself partially fostered by the CIA and the globalist intelligence apparatus. Yeah, if you guys don't know that, there's a lot of the things that happened in the 1960s Cultural Revolution that was inspired by the intelligence apparatus. Definitely want to check that one out. So not to worry, though. The Rockefeller, decades earlier, provided an ever-industrializing people the public education system. No more did communities have to gather their children in the church house to teach them the ways of their culture. No more did young adults have to learn the community labors from master craftsmen who learned the old ways of father to son or mother to daughter. Instead, increasingly, college-educated teachers would teach a better way, a globalist way, to our children. And so, that continued to progress until we get today, and this is where I kind of made this image showing the transition here. We have the transition from, this farmhouse community life where mom and dad are home and you got the kids at home and we're all on the family farm, and, we'd work with other farms and homesteads near us to have all these amazing things and be really self-sufficient. You wouldn't really need money as much because if you needed something, you did trade, you did labor trade, or you invested in the person by helping them build their house or something like that. Well, now we have what's on the left. You have this hyper-industrialized 15-minute cities, globalist situation where mom and dad have to go to work. You have to hire babysitters who are often underpaid, or daycare companies, also produced by globalists, who are often staffed by people who don't necessarily care about much your kids. Now, there are a lot of good people in these situations, so I'm not trying to throw shade on everybody here, but clearly there's a better situation for children and our culture, and it's not the one on the left, it's the one on the right. So if you want to learn more about that and read this story, you can go to the links in the description and vigilant.news and look at the show notes for today, and you can find this article. So there you go.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, so I suppose let's do the new book of the month. What do you say?
All right. Got it right here.
All right, here we go. Let me pull it up on the old screen here. So what's the name of this book?
This book, it's actually an old book. It came out about 100 years ago. It's called Secret Societies and Subversive Movements by Nesta H. Webster. So I'm sure there's a lot of you who are familiar with her work. She was around the 20s and the 30s, wrote a lot about Freemasonry, about the schisms and what was going on with Freemasonry at the time. This is before World War II. So a lot of the stuff that she was writing about was like the French Revolution, how the subversive movements behind that. She got into the history of Kabbalah and how Kabbalah kind of evolved through the ages. It seems like, as I'm reading this, I'm writing a series called Charting the Cabal in my spare time, just kind of based off of my own hobby reading and trying to kind of understand how things evolve, which is really impossible when you're dealing with secret societies because everything is obscured and hidden. But there's a lot that isn't. So tracing all of that, other people have tried to do it. Nesta H. Webster has done a great job of it. And one thing that I've noticed that she kind of filled in the blank for me, the common theme running all the way back to, pre-Christian, I guess, power structures, whether they were in Egypt or the Pharisees, things like that, all the way through to the Templars, the Knights Templar. Stop, buddy. My dog is over here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's humping the carpet. I'm sorry. But a common theme running through all of these groups throughout time is that there is an element within them or around them, typically, that is dabbling in Kabbalah, all the way back. The Essenes. A lot of people talk about the Essenes and Jesus being in a scene. Whether or not any of that's true, is lost to the footnotes of time. But then you had groups in Rome. You had Pythagoras playing around with Kabbalah. You have the Gnostics. They all used Kabbalah. And the hermits, the alchemists in the Middle Ages, they were all dabbling in Kabbalah. So the Kabbalah seems to be the common theme that runs through all of these mystery religions and secret societies. I wouldn't be surprised if it's still something being practiced today. We know that Madonna and a lot of these people in Hollywood have their own covens where they practice Kabbalah and they openly talk about it. So it kind of talks about that, not necessarily that Kabbalah itself is inherently evil, just that it seems like it can be used that way and has been. Even I know you did a deep dive on John Dee, the court magician of Queen Elizabeth, a known Rosicrucian who worked with Francis Bacon and Sir Walter Raleigh and other pretty important figures from that time, the cabal of the Elizabethan court, you could say, and that they dabbled in Kabbalah and stuff like that. So, it keeps popping up, and it seems to pop up and it's got its own history too that's contested. The belief is that Kabbalah goes all the way back to Adam and the original patriarchs of the human race. There's a school of thought that believes it's not too far into the distant past, and then there's another school of thought that believes it's only existed for the last 1,000 years. And certainly it seems like it's been rebranded and changed over those time periods. But she gets really into that. She gets really into the history of Freemasonry, how that happened, all of the schisms, the difference between York and Scotch Rite, which is important. Arguably, some of the best people in the world and some of the worst people in the world have passed through the free Masonic system. And that it's not all one cohesive organization, far, far from it. So it's really informative. It's connecting a lot of dots that I previously didn't have connected. I think a big part of that is because, as time goes on, it seems like they're weeding history away slowly. You can look at college history books from 50 years ago versus those from 100 years ago, and it's a big difference. And then you look at them today, and it's like, what happened? Why is all this stuff being cut out? Well, this book was published in either the 20s or the 30s, and it hasn't been weeded out. So there's a lot of stuff in there that's probably more accurate than you'll find in the New Age section of Barnes & Noble for modern authors.
Right. Nice. Yeah, I can't wait to read that one. There's a few books that we've been collecting recently, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
I've heard so many people talk really great about this, and what would be really cool is to have a series about kind of like the secret history of all this stuff that it just fills in so many gaps that I think everybody would do well to understand. So links in the description, everybody. You can also go to vigilant.news for the show notes today, and you can find the book of the month, Secret Societies, Subversive Movements and Subversive Movements. That's what it says there. So check that out. All right. So also, I want to remind everybody. So we've got this DJT party happening here. So on Friday, not of this Friday, but next Friday, we're going to have a celebration for Donald Trump. We're going to have as many people as I can pack into the show. We'll have games. We'll have contests. You can show off your spirit. You can also, your patriotic spirit. You can also say happy birthday to Donald Trump. So this is a digital birthday card that I found. You can make a post here. Go ahead and sign in. I'm going to put it in the chat right now. So hopefully you guys will go in there and say happy birthday to Donald Trump. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually send this to Donald Trump, so he could potentially see this. He could see how much you love him. He could see your birthday wishes, and especially right now with all the shenanigans happening, he's being persecuted more than ever before. We want to throw a celebration of this man. We want to remind people how amazing he of a patriot is. We're going to have different segments about, some of the debunking fake news. Dauntless Dialogue has pledged to come on and do some really cool stuff for the program. We're going to have some other people on here, so go ahead and check that out. You can go to the link in the description is right there at the top of the Eventbrite page. You can come in here and click order tickets. The tickets are free. If you want to be a VIP, you're going to get a hat and a button, and you can help support this organization, or you can just make a donation period, and we'll put your name on the supporter wall here. But yeah, it's free to RSVP, so you don't have to pay any money. And if you want to, you can, of course. And don't forget, you can also sign the birthday card, the Kugo board, as they're called, Kudo board, I guess. So yeah, looking forward to that. All right, is there anything else we wanted to mention?
Not that I can think of right now. We got a lot of stuff in the works. So there's going to be a lot that we will be talking about in the near future. A lot of stuff coming out on Dauntless Dialogue and in the Substack world. So keep an eye out for all that.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. And also, guys, I will remind you one last time to check out our sponsors with Agarikon Mushroom. Help support your lung health and various other forms of your health with the next potential, horrible, nightmarish pandemic situation that comes around the corner here. So you can check that out. Link in the description with that. Every time you make a purchase with the link in the description, you will be helping to support this show. So, and, for the DJT party, that's also going to be supported by Ascent Nutrition. So yeah, really looking forward to, we're really looking forward to you guys coming to that event, DJT party, not this Friday, but next Friday. Also check out the Substacks. No doubt Ryan and I will have some more Substacks for you. And with that, we'll see you next time on Vigilant News. Much love and take care.